The global power game is changing fast, and Russia is now playing with stolen cards. In recent months, Vladimir Putin has crossed a dangerous line not just politically but economically. Western companies are no longer leaving Russia by choice, their businesses are being taken by force. This isn't business anymore. This is legalized theft. Factories worth billions of dollars have been seized overnight under state orders. Foreign ownership is being erased, contracts are being ignored, and private property rights inside Russia are collapsing. Why would a country with nuclear weapons feel so desperate that it needs to steal insulation factories and food packaging plants? Because behind the propaganda, Russia's economy is quietly breaking. And what the Kremlin is doing now is not strength, it is survival mode. Let's understand what actually happened. On New Year's Eve, while the world was celebrating, Putin quietly signed decrees that changed everything. These orders became active weeks later and officially allowed the Kremlin to seize foreign-owned companies directly. Two major examples shocked the business world. One was a European insulation giant with advanced technology. The other was a massive packaging company supplying food industries. Their factories were not sold. They were not negotiated. They were simply taken. Ownership was transferred to suspicious local companies created only months earlier, businesses with no experience, no reputation, and no transparency. On paper, everything looked legal. In reality, it was economic hijacking. International law calls this a violation of property rights. But Moscow calls it temporary administration. The truth is simple. When a government starts stealing factories, it's no longer protecting its economy, it's exposing its fear. Now the real question. Why is Russia doing this right now? The answer is not ideology. It is panic. Russia is facing one of the worst infrastructure crises in years. Entire neighborhoods have suffered heating system failures. Pipes have burst in freezing temperatures. Families were left without warmth in the middle of winter. These incidents created public anger the Kremlin cannot afford before elections. This is where those seized factories suddenly become strategic. Insulation materials are no longer just construction products, they are political tools. They protect buildings, reduce heating failures, and help the government avoid mass outrage. Sanctions have cut Russia off from high-quality imports. Domestic production can't meet demand. So instead of building new capacity, the Kremlin chose the shortcut: take control of existing foreign technology. This isn't economic policy. This is damage control. And when a government starts stealing technology to survive winter, it's a sign that the system is cracking from inside. But survival is only half the story. The other half is revenge. Some of the seized companies had openly supported Ukraine's reconstruction. Donations worth tens of millions were sent to help rebuild cities destroyed by the war. For the Kremlin, this was not charity, it was betrayal. The message from Moscow is brutal and clear. If you help my enemy, you will lose everything you own here. This is no longer economics. This is collective punishment. Foreign businesses are being used as political hostages. Investments are being treated like weapons. Factories are being turned into tools of intimidation. Putin is sending a warning to every international company still operating in Russia: loyalty is mandatory, neutrality is no longer accepted. This shift proves something dangerous. Russia has abandoned the idea of global trade rules. It now believes power decides ownership. And when trade becomes warfare, the entire economic system begins to collapse. But the real danger goes even deeper. Inside Russia, ordinary people are now paying the price for these political games. When foreign companies are seized, jobs disappear, salaries stop, factories slow down, entire cities that depended on these businesses begin to collapse economically. Yet the Kremlin-controlled media tells a different story. They claim this is economic independence. They call it national strength. But the truth is hidden. Investors around the world are watching this chaos very carefully. And what they see is terrifying. A country where contracts mean nothing, ownership can be taken overnight, and law is controlled by politics. Once trust is broken, it is almost impossible to rebuild. Global corporations are now quietly preparing exit strategies. new investors are refusing to enter the Russian market. Even long-term allies are beginning to hesitate. Russia is slowly isolating itself, not just politically but economically too. And history shows us something important. When a nation cuts itself off from the world economy, collapse does not happen instantly. But it becomes inevitable, but the consequences don't stop at borders. Russia's actions are now sending shockwaves across the entire world. Energy markets are unstable, food prices are rising, global trade routes are being disrupted. Ordinary families in many countries are now paying higher prices, all because of political power games. Behind closed doors, world leaders are holding emergency meetings. Intelligence agencies are working overtime. Military alliances are strengthening their positions. Everyone is preparing for what could come next. The fear is not just about war. The fear is about unpredictability. When one powerful nation begins acting without limits, without accountability, it forces the rest of the world to respond. This creates tension, suspicion, and dangerous misunderstandings. History has taught us a brutal lesson. Major conflicts often begin not with explosions, but with silence, miscalculations, and unchecked ambition. The world is now standing at a crossroads. One wrong move could change everything. But here's the most dangerous part of all. When a government starts surviving on control instead of competence, it stops caring about its people. The priority shifts from progress to power, from development to dominance. Inside Russia, fear is growing quietly. Business owners are nervous. Professionals are leaving. Young minds are losing hope. This is how great nations begin to collapse, not through invasion but from within. Propaganda becomes louder. Truth becomes dangerous. And silence becomes survival. The Kremlin may control factories. It may control resources. It may even control narratives. But it cannot control reality forever. Because sooner or later, the people start asking questions. And when questions begin, empires begin to fall. History gives us one clear lesson. No system built on fear survives forever. You can seize factories. You can silence critics. You can rewrite laws. But you cannot rewrite the human instinct for freedom. Across Russia today, ordinary people are paying the price for decisions they never made. Rising prices, falling wages, limited opportunities, a future that feels stolen. And while the Kremlin talks about strength, the world sees something else. A nation shrinking, a power growing desperate, a leadership trapped by its own choices. Every seized company, every broken agreement, every betrayed partner is another brick in the wall separating Russia from the world. And walls don't protect forever. They eventually collapse. The real damage from these seizures is not happening inside Russia's borders, it is happening in the minds of global investors. Around the world, companies are watching Russia very carefully. Every CEO, every investor, every financial institution is asking the same dangerous question. If it happened to them, could it happen to us? And the honest answer is yes. The moment a country proves that ownership rights can disappear overnight, confidence dies. No contract feels safe. No investment feels protected. Even businesses that once believed they were safe partners with Russia are now reconsidering everything. Trust, once broken, is almost impossible to restore in global finance. This is why even Russia's remaining partners are acting cautiously. Some are slowing projects, some are delaying investments, others are quietly preparing exit strategies. Economic power does not come from factories alone, it comes from credibility, it comes from stability, it comes from trust, and when those three disappear, money follows them out the door. On WARLOGIC X, we believe this is one of the most dangerous silent consequences of Russia's strategy because economic isolation doesn't happen overnight. It happens slowly and then all at once. What makes this situation even more alarming is that the seizures are no longer targeting only foreign companies. Now, even powerful Russian business figures are feeling the pressure. Assets owned by wealthy industrialists, logistics magnates, and production giants are increasingly being pulled under state control. This signals a major transformation inside Russia's power structure. Wealth alone is no longer protection. Influence alone is no longer enough. The new currency of survival inside the system is loyalty, absolute loyalty. Business leaders who once believed their political neutrality would protect them are now realizing that silence is no longer safety. The line between private enterprise and state authority is disappearing. Industries once run by professionals are being placed under politically appointed leadership. Decisions that should be made by engineers and economists are now being made by political figures. This is how efficiency declines. This is how innovation slows. This is how entire economic systems begin to decay from within. History has shown us this pattern before. When competence is replaced by loyalty, systems weaken. When fear replaces creativity, progress dies. On WARLOGIC X, we see this shift as one of the most critical warning signs for the future stability of Russia's economy. While Russia may feel powerful domestically, the international response is building quietly but strategically. Governments across Europe have already labeled these seizures as illegal. Legal experts are now preparing massive international arbitration cases that could cost Russia tens of billions of dollars in future compensation. These legal processes do not move quickly, but they move relentlessly. History shows that countries that violate international economic law often face consequences years later, when leadership changes, when diplomatic doors reopen, when global reintegration becomes necessary. That is when the bill arrives. Frozen assets, blocked financial systems, trade restrictions, and legal judgments accumulate like financial chains waiting for the future. Even if today's leadership ignores them, tomorrow's leaders will inherit the consequences. This is why these actions are not just political moves, they are long-term financial traps. Every seizure creates another future lawsuit. Every takeover builds another case file. Every decision deepens isolation. The global financial system may seem slow, but it is patient. And once trust is lost, even legal victories cannot fully repair reputation. On WARLOGIC X, we believe this silent legal war will shape Russia's economic future more than any battlefield ever could. In the short term, seized factories may continue operating. Machines will run, workers will show up. Production may continue for a while, but modern industry does not survive on buildings alone. It survives on software updates, precision components, specialized expertise, international supply chains, and continuous innovation. Without access to Western technology, technical support, and advanced manufacturing ecosystems, these factories will gradually lose efficiency. Equipment will fail more often, repairs will become slower, quality will decline, costs will rise. Economic decay rarely looks dramatic at first. It begins quietly: delayed repairs, reduced output, lower quality, slower upgrades. Then it accelerates. Suddenly, industries that once competed globally become unable to compete even regionally. This is the hidden danger of isolation: not collapse but stagnation, not explosion but slow erosion. A modern economy cannot thrive without collaboration, openness, and technological exchange. Cutting those connections weakens long-term national strength. Even large countries cannot innovate in isolation forever. On WARLOGIC X, we see this path clearly: not immediate disaster but a gradual weakening that limits future growth, future opportunity, and future resilience. A nation may survive today but struggle to compete tomorrow. History teaches us an uncomfortable truth: power maintained through control rarely builds lasting stability. When nations replace cooperation with confiscation, when loyalty replaces competence, and when fear replaces innovation, the damage does not always appear immediately, but it always arrives eventually. Putin's strategy may protect authority today, it may secure factories, it may stabilize short-term supply chains, but it comes at a heavy cost: long-term trust, long-term innovation, long-term global credibility. These are not resources that can be seized, they must be earned. The real question now is not whether this strategy works today. The real question is whether it will still work 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when technology gaps widen, when legal consequences mature, when investor confidence remains broken. Russia stands at a crossroads between survival through adaptation or decline through isolation. The decisions made today will define the nation's economic future for generations. Now we ask you, Is this a strategic masterstroke to preserve national stability? Or is it a dangerous path toward long-term decline? Share your thoughts in the comments. For deep geopolitical analysis, strategic breakdowns, and real-world power dynamics, stay connected with WARLOGIC X.